Okay, so now we know how we create energy through food and how our body is supposed to respond to that energy in an environment that is conducive to a good metabolism. Now we're going to talk about the ways that we screw up our metabolism. So there are several things that we do throughout our life cycle that really mess up our metabolism, and I want you to understand how. Whenever we talked about energy and how we create energy, remember our body breaks down food into sugar or glucose. The sugar or glucose goes into the bloodstream. Whenever it gets into the bloodstream, the brain tells the pancreas to secrete insulin. The insulin combines with the sugar and brings it to the muscles to be used as energy. Whenever it gets to the muscles are this big circle and you have different little gates or receptor sites in it. So with a good metabolism, all those receptor sites are open, your body accepts them to be used as energy, everybody's happy. With a poor metabolism, one of the things that happens is it goes to use the energy in the muscle cells. Some of those receptor sites are closed, or we're dumping too much sugar into them at one time, and so they force to close, saying enough is enough. So then that sugar and insulin combined, they go back into the bloodstream, and then we store it to be used later whenever we need it. And unfortunately, we tend to store it in that place where it's most readily accessible, which is your belly, so belly fat. So some ways that we really mess that up throughout our life cycle is, number one, is we treat our body like a car. We eat irregularly. We don't eat breakfast. We may eat a little bit for lunch or have a candy bar or coffee mid-afternoon. And then at night, we have a large meal. So what you're doing is you're not giving your body the energy that it needs in the morning. You're forcing it to try to convert stored energy into usable energy, but you're probably not expending a whole lot of energy, so those muscles are not really open to accepting it. Then you're going to have coffee, so you're going to speed up your heart rate, get a little bit of energy that way, which is false energy, and then you're going to give it possibly a small lunch, maybe a burger or something that's really difficult to break down, and then you're going to go into your afternoon, have a candy or something like that to keep you going because you're tired. So your body is craving energy, it's needing energy, so you're giving it sugar to give it energy, but you're dumping it in so quickly that it uses it, and your receptor sites and your muscles, whenever it goes to it, are like, whoa, what the heck's going on here? You hadn't been doing anything all day, so it's going to use some of it that you've dumped in, and then the rest is going to be stored once again. Then you go home, you have a large meal at night. It's way too much for your body to process at one time. So that again is dumped into the bloodstream as sugar. The insulin comes out, grabs onto it, it goes into the muscles, and in the muscles it accepts some of it, but the rest of it is like she's sitting down and watching TV and eating potato chips. So we don't need a lot. So again, it sends it back into the bloodstream and it stores it for later use. But you never use it later. You sit still. So whenever you do that, what you're doing is you're getting those muscles accompanied to not accepting the energy. You're not using the energy that you're giving to your body. And when you're dumping energy in instead of trickling it in throughout the day. So that's one thing, is eating irregular meals and having large meals at one time. The other thing is to actually do fad diets where you're starving yourself and then you're eating heavily. Then you're starving yourself, then you're eating heavily. And so you get on that big roller coaster of increasing and decreasing your weight. And whenever you do that, your body is super confused. It's like, what in the heck does she expect me to do? Are we starving? Are we feasting? What are we doing? Your muscles do not know how to respond because they're accepting the energy, and then because they need it, because you're exercising, and then you're like, nope, I'm going to hibernate. So then you're not using anything. So we screw up our metabolism that way. The other way that we screw up our metabolism is eating unhealthy. So choosing the wrong foods and dumping sugar into our bloodstream at any given time, like in the middle of the day, the middle of the morning, mid-afternoon. Those are our two big culprits, and then in the evenings. So you're dumping sugar in in whenever your body doesn't need it, whenever your muscles don't need it, and you're not utilizing it. So those are some of the ways that we screw it up with what we do. Now, there are other things that happen to our bodies with our hormones and such that really tend to slow down our metabolism. So I want to target those today, and I want you to become a little more keen about what happens to your body as you get older. Here's one of the things that happens is our cortisol levels are disrupted. So cortisol is an amazing hormone. It actually helps to decrease inflammation, and it helps to convert stored energy into usable energy. You should be pumped about that. Like immediately whenever you hear that, you should be like, what? I'm in love with cortisol, because cortisol converts that stuff that's stuck on the hips into usable energy, so it helps you to lose weight. Cortisol is our stress hormone. It's released whenever we have stress. Physical, mental, emotional, whatever kind of warfare that's going on in your body, it secretes cortisol. So cortisol is secreted by our adrenal glands. Our adrenal glands, these little bitty glands that are super, super powerful. So it's secreted by them. Well, whenever you have high amounts of stress for an extended period of time, those adrenal glands are working overtime. They're secreting the cortisol. Whenever you're under stress and that's happening, that is a prime time for you to take advantage of that normal hormone cycle where you could lose weight. But what do we do instead? We give up exercising, so we stop making our muscles hungry. We start eating crap. We ditch our meal plan. We start to really lose sight of our regular habits, and we feed into that stress, making matters worse. So whenever you are under stress, here are a couple of things that I want you to think about. Is whenever you're under stress, I want exercise to be the first thing that you do, because that is something that's going to help you to cope with stress. It's going to help to suppress those cortisol levels, take a little pressure off of the adrenal glands. It's also going to help you to think more clearly, and it's going to help you to take advantage of that increase in your cortisol levels, even though it might be slight because you're really working to manage it. So even if it's slight, you're going to actually take advantage of it because you're going to make your muscles hungry. So all of that stored energy that's here on the hips that you're converting to usable energy, you're going to actually use it. So take that one to the bank, right? That's awesome whenever you're under stress to actually lose weight, but lose weight the healthy way. The next thing is to just become really strict with your meal plan. So if you have a meal plan that's created, I know it's very difficult whenever you're under stressful situations, but really try to take that off the table, meaning that you're not going to have to think about food all the time. Just try to follow it like a robot and be really, instead of having that knee-jerk reaction whenever we have stress, have a more controlled response to the stressful situation. We're going to talk about stress and how to deal with stress much later, but I want you to understand that so that you don't get so frustrated with not losing weight whenever you're under stress, and so you don't eat your way through your stress, right? Because that's our typical emotion. So the other thing that happens though at where we screw up our metabolism with the cortisol is those cortisol levels are high for a set period of time, and then your adrenal glands get suppressed, so they get really tired and weak, so our cortisol levels are low. Whenever your cortisol levels are low, or you're in what some people call adrenal fatigue, then what happens is you're not able to convert stored energy into usable energy, and you have a lot of inflammatory processes throughout your body. Remember, inflammation is the devil. It is the root of all disease states, and we want to suppress inflammation all that we can in every way that we can. So we want to support our cortisol levels the best way that we possibly can. So controlling and managing stress, exercising so that you do things that are good for your body whenever you're under stressful situations is really, really important. But whenever those cortisol levels are compromised, then we tend to have a lower metabolism, so we're not burning off those calories that are stored at all, so which leads to a lot of frustration. The other thing that happens is as we get older, our progesterone levels decrease. So we need cortisol to create progesterone, right? They work together. So whenever your progesterone levels naturally decrease as we get older, then that actually compromises your metabolism. So I just said that backwards. We need progesterone to create cortisol. We have to have our progesterone. So progesterone is one of those hormones that helps protect our bodies from all of those diseases that our spouses have, that men have. So it helps to decrease our risk for heart disease, helps to decrease our risk for cancer. But whenever we get older, our progesterone levels decrease. So whenever we have a progesterone deficiency, then it makes it much more difficult for us to lose weight as well, because our cortisol levels are lower, which decreases our ability to convert stored energy into usable energy, which is part of that natural decline in our metabolism as we get older. So what I want you to do, so what do you do about that? Well, first of all, you need to talk to your doctor. You need to be well aware of what some of the signs of progesterone deficiencies are and make a decision. Are you going to actually do hormone therapy, or are you not? Are you going to do progesterone or estrogen therapy, one or the other or both? You want to make sure that you understand, you're able to make a knowledgeable decision, and you're just not following your doctor's orders blindly. So I want you to become very aware of how your hormones are affecting your body as you get older, what you can blame them on, what you can't blame them on, and how you can correct it. So those are two things that I want to touch on today, is your cortisol level, your progesterone level. As we touch on those, I want you to order a book, which is Hormones, Health, and Happiness by Dr. Steve Hotze. This is absolutely one of my favorite books ever, because it's a very good guide about your hormone levels and such. You know, no more do we really prescribe hormone therapy just based on blood tests. It's very subjective, looking at how you feel, your anxiety level, your level of depression, because that tends to raise up, because progesterone and cortisol help with our brain health and our mental health. And also, seeing results from the hard work that we're doing helps with that as well. Where if you're not seeing results, if your weight is really weighing heavy on you and you're doing everything possible to make that happen, then what happens? If you're not seeing results, you tend to get very depressed, you get very anxious, you get really very deflated, and you feel defeated. So with all of that, you have not only the physical effects of low progesterone and low cortisol levels, but you also have the mental and emotional effects. Well, what happens when you go to a doctor that doesn't stay up to date with these issues, or they say, well, you're still having a period, so you don't need to have any therapy, then you end up on an anti-anxiety or an antidepressant. You have Xanax, you have Prozac, and Wellbutrin, all of these medications that are prescribed to women that actually have anxiety because of a hormone deficiency. So instead of treating the hormone deficiency, we're putting a Band-Aid on it. So I don't want that to be you. I want you to be more knowledgeable. So get the book, Hormones, Health, and Happiness. It's by Dr. Steve Hotze. He's one of the leading hormone therapists in the nation. Understand your body and make sure that you're working with a physician that's going to help you with it. That's very knowledgeable in how to help you through these changes in your life cycle. So we went through what you can do about and what is totally within your control when it comes to your metabolism. We want to eat regular, consistent food. Stop dumping sugar and fuel into your body. Trickle it in throughout the day. Make sure that you make your muscles hungry even whenever you're under stress. You want to make sure that you're exercising and to keep that metabolism up, and to help your body to manage that stress and get through the stress with a clear head, clear mind. And then also I want you to make sure that you understand what's going on in your body. You need to be more knowledgeable than the average bear, basically. You need to make sure that you're smarter than your mom was and your grandmother was whenever it came. We have so many things that can help us, and I want you to make a knowledgeable and an informed decision whenever it comes to that. So get the book. Make those changes that you need to make in your habits, and by all means, make those muscles hungry throughout the day, every single day. 10,000 steps, ladies. Okay? You have an amazing day, and happy burning energy.